Just go
Yeah,
ahead and
how
count.
is that for you?
Just count back from five for me once.
Beg your pardon?
Just go ahead and count backwards from five for me one time.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
All right, sounds pretty good. Marla, go ahead.
5, 4, 3.
Okay, excellent. Yep, both sounded good. I sent a test hello on the messenger. Make sure that came through to you.
Okay. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Yep, I can hear you good.
Perfect.
All right, well,
As
we're
you
good to
can,
go. We still have about a minute and a half till we get started.
perfect. Thanks. All right. I'm going to get us on. We're going to start recording. We're already live on YouTube. So away we go. We're just going to wait for the intro. But in the
All right.
meantime, just know that we're live.
Yes.
Do you have anything you want to say? Feel free.
Oh, just that I'm looking forward very much to the conversation with you and support all work that's a contribution to people all over the world.
I feel the same way because everybody has so many important things to accomplish. And whether they seem big or small, it's irrelevant.
Right.
I had a vision in meditation today, and they were like two pieces of ropes being weaved in multiple rows, but they were being weaved together. And it was such a fabulous visual for me because it's what we're all trying to do. We're
Right.
weaving together to try and make it cohesive in one.
In the whole tapestry.
Right? Absolutely, yes. So it was a very cool visual for me.
Yeah, I'm sure.
All right, 30 seconds.
Thank you. So it was, that's how we feel we're all doing. And that book that we're going to talk about, and I know I keep saying how powerful it is, but I truly in my heart feel the power of it.
Yes, likewise. And that's the joy of the conversation. The heart feeling expands the joy.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, I'm going to send the feed your way. Have a good show.
Thanks.
Welcome to an enlightened hour of interactive talk. This is Guided Spirit Conversations with host Marla Goldberg. In this program, we spotlight guests from all over the globe who have helped others change their lives and will provide you with the tips, tools, and techniques that you need to help you make a difference in your own life. Now, here is Marla Goldberg.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Guided Spirit Conversations. I'm Marla Goldberg, and I'm really excited about today's guest because Ness Carroll is this amazing Renaissance woman. She was originally from Australia, now living on the beautiful west coast of the United States, and helping many to achieve their life going through her SYNERGENICS, which is her original life coach program. And in addition to that, she's a psychic medium, a Sufi teacher, and is working on this incredible book with our mutual friend, Endre Balogh. So Endre is a virtuoso. He's been on my show. He creates the most beautiful sacred geometry. And Ness is working in collaboration by channeling messages. Tell me if I'm going to be wrong about this, but channeling messages for each of the sacred geometry pictures that Endre creates. And so welcome, Ness.
Thank you.
Did I get that correct about the book?
You did. A pleasure to be here. And yeah, what Spirit is doing, well, first of all, they're channeling Endre's images through the digital computer process. But they're in channeling the words that go with the images. If you just read the words, they're intended to give the same experience that the image gives.
So it's twice the vibration.
Right. Twice plus. A little
twice
extra.
plus. Yeah.
Right.
That spiritual kick is in there. Yeah, the words are powerful. I know that I was fortunate enough to get a little peek of a couple of the pages, and and I say this a lot in the promotions, but I don't say anything that I don't believe, but it truly deeply hits my heart on such a level when I read the words and look at the picture. It's so this is going to be, when this book is totally finished, it's going to come together and be phenomenal and such a tool for many people.
Thank you. I got a quite an extraordinary text from one of my friends, Tina Paddleford, who had seen a couple of the pre-pages of the book, and her text was, "Wow, just wow.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you lose your vocabulary because
Mhm.
it's just incredibly powerful. So I can't wait. And now you're starting I know I'm sort of like jumping in the middle of this interview, but since
It's
we
okay.
started with the book, we'll just continue. You're starting
Sure.
a crowdfunding campaign for the book.
Yes, we'll be launching the crowdfunding campaign on November 15th. It'll be a 30-day campaign, and people will have an opportunity to pre-order the book.
Oh, excellent. And
Yeah.
so it's kickstarter.com.
It is, and the link, we can, if people want to go to our website or contact you directly, we can let them know the link when Kickstarter gives it to us.
Perfect.
And the website is www.synergeometry.com.
SYNERGEOMETRY.com.
As Disney says, why? Because we like you.
I felt like I was in a spelling bee for a second.
Right.
Did I get it right? But let's go back. Let's start from your beginning of your
Sure.
journey and how you got from Australia to here. And we're as a child. I always like to start at the beginning. Is this a gift that you were aware of when you were a child?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I can remember as well, as far back as I can remember, seeing spirit. And at night when I would go to sleep, a white spiral would come to me that I'm sure I used to leave the body as I went to sleep. And I also, in my very young years was able to write poetry and had one of my paintings shown in the art museum in Western Australia and stuff like that.
So
I
very
would
right-brained.
walk for hours in the Australian bush, knew where all the wildflowers would come up in spring, that kind of thing.
It sounds so beautiful. And so as you progressed in life, did you end up sort of, as many people do, stopping the information from coming through because you were told it wasn't, you weren't seeing anything, you weren't hearing anything, society that says this isn't true. This doesn't, nobody believes this, but it's true.
Well, it happened in a very interesting way for me. I was already in Santa Barbara, California, at University of California at Santa Barbara, and all of my psychic centers opened at once. And it was in the early days of FM radio, and I can remember being able to hear whatever the original FM radio station in San Francisco was without a radio receiver. At that stage, I called the Berkeley Psychic Institute and asked them for help.
Help guide you through this.
Really?
That's so funny. I hear that too. I mean, the first time I opened up, I had angelic choir in my ear, and I kept saying, could you lower the music to the roommate I was with? And she goes, there's no music on. And but it's so loud. And I went to sleep, and then it went away and it didn't come back. But now I'm hearing some different kind of like TV commercials in my head, the music. And it's sort of like, this is so weird.
It's funny, isn't it? It really is. And there's nothing you can do about it. At that point in time, you can't close it off because the neural pathways are opening up.
And that's what I want, is my neural pathways to be wide open, because like you, I want to be here to raise consciousness, help others, because that's what we're about. It's not to keep to ourselves, it's to extend outward. So,
right. Just a word on the angelic choir for a moment, because that really touched something in me. It's a forward-moving project after we've launched this book, but Spirit has already downloaded messages about 70 different kinds of angels, and Endre is working on the images of the angels right now as we speak.
And he's a phenomenal photographer. He's an award-winning photographer.
Yes.
So is he using his photographs or his sacred geometry for the angelic book?
A combination of both.
Lovely. Yeah. Absolutely lovely. I mean, you two are you're such a talented duo. It's the vision I'm seeing is it's like a corral, but you're outside the corral. You're like pushing outside. It's a very beautiful visual.
Well, we're doing our best.
So let's talk about your synergenics. So were you a Sufi teacher before you started SYNERGENICS? Were you, I guess I'm just trying to figure out the path that led you there.
I've been involved in the Sufi work for quite a long time, and have the privilege of being one of the Sufi teachers for Australia and New Zealand in the Chishti order and in the Mevlevi order. And that, if people don't know, there's a Sufi invocation that says it really beautifully, which is toward the one, the harmony of the perfection of love, harmony, and beauty. It brings together all the different religions, and it that form the embodiment of the masters, the spirit of guidance. So it allows people from any faith, philosophy, culture to join together and look for what's common in all of them.
Which is beautiful. You know, as I
Yeah.
hear said, we are many, we are one.
Yes.
And that's what it sounds like Sufism is.
Yes.
We are many, we are one, because we're all connected.
Exactly. And it's a way of celebrating that through people's individual affiliations and, you know, acknowledging that they're all equal, different, but equal.
And the information is all powerful for everybody.
Right.
It's not a select few. Like if you go with, I mean, I hate to call out, but like a Jehovah's Witness, you know, they're like, their beliefs are the only beliefs, or this or that. And
right.
where we, you know, where the bottom line is, we all believe in a higher being, a higher self or spiritual being that helps guide.
Well, Werner Erhard originally in the S training and then in the Landmark Forum distinguished belief as just being belief. That's just a thought we have or a conversation we have with ourselves and other people. It has nothing necessarily to do with reality at all.
Exactly. And and those beliefs are really handed down from person to person. And do you feel like with each time it's brought down, not with everyone, but there's a lot of ego that is sort of attached to some of the beliefs that are shared with other people for possible control reasons?
Well, let's just look at what ego is. If you look at the physiology of consciousness, we have a right brain and a left brain that gives us the experience of duality. Yes. What ego is the use of that duality to compare one thing to another. So if you're in the midbrain where everything is, as you said, one, you don't need to be in the duality, and you don't need to go through ego.
Yes. And I know that ego is important for us to be able to live our life in this world.
Right.
But there's also, go ahead.
As they say in Latin, ego te absolvo.
Which is ego to absolve?
No, it's I absolve you of your ego. All right, it's from the Catholic faith. It's the words of forgiveness.
I love that.
Yes, yeah. So you had asked me how the process began with the SYNERGENICS material.
Yes.
And it began pretty much in my 28th year, first Saturn return, where I started, when I went through an experience, I would have this impulse, its compulsion to write it down in a form that it could be used for other people. And until I wrote it down, you know, I couldn't rest. It was really interesting. So at the end of a year or so, I had lots and lots of 3x5 cards. And I was at a seminar at Stanford University in the summer, a couple of years later, on psychosynthesis. And in the dorm room that I was housed in, they had one of those cork boards. And I took all the 3x5 cards and organized them on the cork board. And that was the first time I saw a synthesis of the material. Fast forward to some years ago where I was leading a training of coaches in the SYNERGENICS material. And Kevin Ryerson, a well-known channel and medium, the medium who Shirley MacLaine worked with to write her original books on her past lives, was our house guest. We had invited him to be a master teacher for our trainees, and he always gave the courtesy of giving a private reading when he was a guest like that. So I'm having a reading with him, and the master teacher, Atun Ray, comes through Kevin. He says, well, how are the lot of you doing with our material? And that's when I realized that not only was it Spirit's material, but it was a whole body of work. And the only thing that I could think of in the moment was to say to him, well, did I get it right? Which they thought that was the funniest thing they'd ever heard. And he said, well, we don't give blanket endorsements from Spirit side. He said, but short of a blanket endorsement, yes, you got it right. So I like to think of myself as a messenger and to personalize it as a messenger.
I like that. That is great.
Right. It's add a little humor to it.
And
but I'm
Spirit
clear
has
it's
humor.
my material that I'm working with. It's Spirit's material.
Right. And Spirit has a great sense of humor.
They do.
They're
Yes.
playful. They're tricksters a little bit, not in a negative way, but
Oh, no, it's almost a mark of knowing that it's them speaking when there's humor associated with it. Humor with compassion, of course.
yes. They, so for anybody out there, if you hear anything negative or telling you to do something negative, that's not Spirit, because
Not
Spirit
Spirit.
will never
No,
come their way.
no, just ego te absolvo, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So in your body of work, do you do psychic medium readings for people?
No, not in that body of work. That's a separate work. What the SYNERGENICS work is it's the spiral, which relates, of course, to our DNA ascending and descending spirals, applied to accelerated personal growth and development. So what Spirit has downloaded is 16 multidimensional matrices that take us through the states and stations of the learning we're to do on the physical plane. So it's for people who are really serious about that process.
Wow, that's powerful. 16,
Well,
16.
Yep, multidimensional matrices.
Yes,
Now,
thank you.
Endre has created a sacred geometry for each of the matrices too, which is really amazing.
Wow. I look forward to seeing what those are.
Yes.
Yeah, I love his work, and I'm learning about your work. So, and
Well,
I know
maybe
that
at
it's
some time in
powerful.
the future, we could talk about what the SYNERGENICS work actually entails in detail.
That would be perfect. I would
Yeah.
love that. It would be great. And so let's talk about, so how do you work with the people? So you work with them primarily for the synergetics.
Yeah, SYNERGENICS. Yeah, it's a
instead of the
combination of the
one-on-one.
word synergy and energy. Yes, I work with them one-on-one. I work with them individually or on Zoom, or I work with the group, and basically. And, people wonder what it takes to be a life coach.
Yes.
What it takes to be a life coach is that you've gone through the state or station that you're coaching somebody in, so that you have an experiential basis to hold the space for them to go through the growth and change.
I love how you say that, because many people that I've run into, myself included, have gone through some tremendous life's challenges. But when you come out on the other end, I look at it now, I had to go through it because it was
Right.
stepping stones to growth and learning. So I'd be able to help other people.
Right,
I would be
exactly.
able to be empathetic to what they're going through and say, wait, I know this one. I've been there.
Right. And what SYNERGENICS offers, it's very simple, because spirit, if nothing else, is very simple. I think of it as simplex, but they've provided what we call a sufficient structure to give people something to guide them through those experiences, because the content of everybody's experience is different from everybody else's, but the context can be similar.
Yes. And so I think it's powerful because, again, you have to walk the path and come out of it so that you're able to help other people with their path.
Right.
It's almost a pay it forward kind of philosophy, possibly.
Beg your pardon?
It's like a pay it forward. You know,
yes.
you go
sure.
through it.
Yes.
So you can help somebody else go through theirs, and it's just, and we're all going to do it. Look, we're human beings first and foremost, even though that we're spiritual beings. And as human beings, we're here for specific reasons of learning and growth.
Right.
And to hopefully grow out of these, I'll call them perceived negative situations that we find ourselves in.
Limiting situations.
Limiting situations.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's a beautiful description of that in a book called Initiation by Elizabeth H. Haich. We have it on the book list. If anyone were to go to, all spelled out, theinternationaluniversity.org and click on bookstore, they would find a suggested book list to begin to open up accelerated personal growth and development. Anyway, in Initiation, Elizabeth H., who passed over some years ago and was well known as a yoga teacher in Switzerland, has a full waking memory of herself as the daughter of a pharaoh in Egypt. And she gives in the center of the book the teaching she was given for her initiation in the pyramids. Wow. And one of the ways she sees herself in this life, when she's reflecting back on that awareness, is she's shown people as points of light, and that one person reaching for the hand of the person in front of them and holding the hand to the person behind them.
Oh, that's so powerful. That's beautiful. Mm-hmm. That's a beautiful vision. But we need to take a little break. We'll be right back. Please stay tuned, and we'll have more conversation with Ness Carroll.
Okay, great job. We're all clear.
Thank you. I love that, because I know that I do a number of meditations with a group, and we hold hands, and you just feel the energy go from person to person to person to person.
Oh, yeah, sure. Well, that's something we might want to talk about in the next segment, is that any experience between people is shared. People don't realize it's shared, but it is.
It is.
Whether we think about it or not.
We'll talk about that. I think that's a really good point to bring up, and maybe enlighten some people who may not realize this.
Well, and it's particularly relevant.
Go ahead.
It's particularly relevant in the conversation about relationships, because people, think it's their complementary patterns that are relating, but really any experience people have is shared.
It's true. I think I thought I heard Matt. Yeah, I agree. That resonates so deeply. And it's so funny you told us that Elizabeth was a pharaoh, because I know in some of my past lives I was Egyptian and I was a pharaoh.
Sure, I recognize you from that time period.
So
easy. That's an easy one. Well, I hope this is just the beginning of the connection that we have.
Me too.
The middle of it. Maybe it's the middle of it.
Well, I'd like the middle, because we've had lives before. People who, I know, and I don't know if many people know, that whoever crosses your path has been there before.
Right.
Very few are new.
Right. Nothing new under the sun, right?
Exactly. Even the people, I call them extras, like seat fillers. So if you go to a restaurant, the people who are in the background, sitting in the seats or walking behind you, they've been in your life before, but they've been in the background.
Well, interestingly enough, if you live in Santa Barbara, those people in the restaurant next to you might be Kirk Douglas and Ann Douglas, or it could be Bo Derek. I mean, it's all kinds of interesting people.
Yeah, I haven't been up to Santa Barbara yet. I look forward to it, but I have been to Ojai, which I love.
Oh, great. Yeah, I lived in Ojai for 6 months on the
Beautiful.
Krishnamurti property.
Floyd, sorry to interrupt here, but we are coming back.
Perfect. Thank you.
You are listening to Guided Spirit Conversations. To reach Marla Goldberg or her guest today, you're invited to call into the program at 1-888-346-9141. That's 1-888-346-9141. If you'd rather send an email, the address is guidedspiritconversations@gmail.com. Now, back to this week's program.
Welcome back, everyone. If you've just tuned in, I'm speaking with Ness Carroll. Ness is a Renaissance woman. She is the founder of SYNERGENICS. It's the original life coach training program. She's working on a book called Scared Geometry with Endre Balogh. She's a Sufi teacher and has been following the Sufi ways for quite some time. And if you want to get a hold of Ness, let me give you her information. You can find her. You can email her at Ness, N-E-S-S, at SYNERGENICS.
SYNERGENICS.
Yes, so I'm going to spell it. SYNERGENICS.com.
Actually, it looks like etc., but it's for education, training, and consulting.
And you can reach out to Ness directly there. Check out her website for the book, Scared Geometry, at SYNERGEometry.com. And that's SYNERGEometry.com. Or if you want to check out SYNERGENICS, the life coach training program, it's synergetics.biz. You can also look up what Ness does at the internationaluniversity.org or life, love, and laughter.com. Oh, I love that one. And spiritblog.com. Life, love, and laughter. The 3 L's that are so important.
Right.
So on break, we were talking about the experiences between people that are shared, that some people think their experiences are individual, but in essence, they're not. So let's continue with that.
Well, if you think of all life as energy and us as a more dense form of energy, then you realize that any experience you have with another or other people is actually shared between those people. And we lose sight of that when we're attached to just the very dense form of life.
That's so true. And that again has to do with ego. Because
in
ego form, we all think that like we're it's all about us, but in reality it's all about all of us, because
that's correct.
We are many, we are one. So I'll just repeat that again, and how everything is interconnected.
It is.
And tell me if I'm correct in this. If you think of it in a visual way, you can it's almost like a net that crosses over, and that we're all attached in that kind of
there's
a grid.
A word for that.
And
the internet.
It's a spiritual internet. That's so beautiful.
I couldn't resist that one.
Was Spirit prodding you? Going, say it.
They were. They were. The veil gets a little bit thin with me sometimes.
And it's getting thin in general. So people are having all these experiences that they don't understand.
As they say, Inshallah, God willing, Baruch Hashem.
Baruch Hashem, yeah. But it's important that people know that what's going on is really potent, because the veils are lifting. We're I had someone explain this in a very beautiful way, if you could take it, but it's like what we're going through is the birthing process. And right now we're sort of like being shoved out. So we haven't gotten to the beautiful other side yet, but we're in that painful, bloody part of, pushing and having the baby.
It's funny you should mention that, because one of the things I've had the privilege to be involved in this life is to be a rebirther and be involved in the rebirthing process, work closely with Leonard Orr, God rest his soul. And has worked with rebirthing for many, many years. And friends of mine actually had the first gentle water birth in the United States of America. And I remember how astounding it was to see the video of that, where the baby is born underwater, and for 8 minutes, it swims around underwater, still attached to the placenta, before it comes up at its own choice to take its first breath.
Wow.
I mean, those 8 minutes are something that you can't even imagine.
And you'd think that they wouldn't be able to survive underwater in those
Well, they
circumstances.
can, because they're receiving the oxygen through the placenta.
Very cool.
Quite amazing. Anyway, I'm really committed to gentle birth and to the whole, we talk about birthing a new consciousness. Well, we need to shift our birthing and transition processes on this plane if we want to allow the refinement of a more sensitive consciousness to occur.
So any tips or suggestions how one might step into doing that?
Well, I think the midwifery movement is tremendous. I had the great privilege of birthing my daughter at the farm in Tennessee with Ina May Gaskin and those midwives. So I've had the experience of what that was like. And then, years later, my daughter has had 2 children at Cottage Hospital in Santa Barbara in their birthing room, where they have hot tubs and a bed for the husband to sleep over. And my daughter invited me to be, to attend the births and to assist in coaching her through that. And for my first grandson's birth, the labor and delivery nurse had trained at the farm in Tennessee. So we came full circle on that one.
So you had a lot of synergy in terms
of birthing. We did, yes.
Wow.
We did have synergy there. But it comes down to, anytime you ask a question like that, what would make the difference? It comes down to one's relationship with oneself, essentially, and being accountable for your relationship and your interaction with other people in every interaction.
Every interaction.
Every single one.
Even road rage, or even any of these things. There, you have to be, be accountable for everything.
You do have to be accountable. Yeah,
and it's so important. Let's talk about life purpose. So, could you share with me and the audience, like, what you think is life? The purpose of life, and how you translated that into your living and how you live your life.
Well, that's a question that I would call from the lost and profound department. Right? It's a big question, but what I really think, or actually my experience of my life and the purposes in my life, are to live life fully. And in the living life fully, to include as many people as possible so that other people can have that experience of inclusion. Most communication is a request to be included. Most relationship is a request to be included. And it's how many people we can include in a relationship with ourselves where we have already included our self with it. The ego has absolved itself into the higher self. That, I believe, is the purpose of life.
I hate to say this, but you froze for the first half of your answer. So
it must be really lost and profound, right? So I'll just say it again. It can never be said too many times that first, if you have your relationship with yourself, that you have allowed your higher self to absorb your ego, then you're able to include other people in that. And the more people you include, the more people they can include, until we're all present to the inclusion that we really are all one.
Wow, that is powerful. That's a really powerful one, because it's something, if you think about it, it's like, most people don't think in that way. Most people don't realize how important the inclusion piece is, especially today with all the divisiveness and all the separation.
Right, exactly. And yet, when you think about it, life is really a process of inclusion, and people are including each other in with negative content, and they really don't know how to deal with that. And the way they're dealing with that is to relinquish the life of the other person at the extreme. And I don't know, I've read many different the material of many different spiritual paths, and I have the privilege of being in communication with spirit consciously, and I don't see where anybody ever gave anybody permission to kill another person.
I agree with that.
Doesn't exist.
And that would be what that gives people the thought that they have the right to take someone else's life away.
Right. It's the ultimate disinclusion. It's the ultimate separation trauma.
And which is a shame, because what we need to really do is work at coming together.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how
you're doing so much in your work to create opportunities for the conversation for that to occur. And for that, I'm very grateful, and I thank you.
Thank you for recognizing that. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Totally.
So I want to get into some of the other things. Do you have, and I know that this is sort of like an open, broad question, but if you had a story to share with our audience about something that was just incredible that happened in your life, that was powerful and really life altering for you, could you share a story of such?
I could. There are actually two that are vying for my attention here. One was, and I could do them both if I do them in short form, but one was being privileged to be part of the first spiritual group that traveled to Egypt after past President Anwar Sadat reopened the country to tourism again. And I was part of a staff of 38 people that took 240 people to Egypt and then overland across the Suez Canal to Israel. And one of the people that came on the trip was a rebirthing client of mine. We were doing Monday night rebirthings at the Center for Total Health in San Diego. And this young woman, in the breath work, we would find her curled up in the fetal position, and in this masculine voice, she would say, "It's been 4,000 years, it's been 4,000 years." So I'm like, you should come on this trip to Egypt with us, right? Wow. So what happened in a session that was, if I remember rightly, we were at the Holiday Inn at the pyramids, if you can even imagine that, where you're at a Holiday Inn and you look out your window and you see the pyramids and the Sphinx. And Dr. Edith Fiore, who's well known in the consciousness work, was giving a session. And this young woman went into trance, and they asked me to come up with Dr. Fiore and work with her while she was in trance. And she was present to herself from that an Egyptian incarnation, and she spoke. We have it recorded. She spoke in the ancient Egyptian, and subsequently was able to read and translate hieroglyphics in the pyramids. So that was a pretty amazing experience. It threw me into a waking vision of myself leading the breathing practices at Karnak Temple as a priestess there. So that was one, that was like, whoa, okay. The other, I was having a, again, dear friend, Dr. Werner V. Aradon-Yater, who would spend 6 months of the year in Santa Barbara, 6 months at her Blue Mountain Center in Colorado. Would also give me a reading every time she came to town. And I would use it to research the SYNERGENICS work. Well, Spirit had, I had finished my research questions and they were still there. She was a full body channel. So they were still there speaking through her. And they're like, is there anything else you want to ask? And I didn't use Spirit for personal questions, but I had the opportunity. So I asked a few, very personal questions like, why have I read Michener's book Hawaii 25 times? And the answer was, well, you were involved in the migration of the Tahitians to Hawaii. Okay, I went through a series of questions like that. And the last question, Spirit's still there, and I'm out of questions, right? So I ask what I consider, I think people, so I was Cleopatra in a past life or whatever, give me a break. So I didn't really want to ask the question, but I asked it anyway because Spirit was there. And I was raised in Australia where, the schools went out on the streets and waved flags when the Queen came to visit or the Queen Mother or whatever. So I was raised with the royal family. So I asked the question. And the question was, I've always felt like I had a connection with the British royal family. And I'm like, I can barely even let it come out of my mouth because it's so embarrassing, right? And I said, is there any reason for feeling that? And Spirit's like, yes. And I'm like, okay. And they're silent, right? And I'd say, can you tell me what that is? And they said, yes, we can. Silence. And I'm like, okay, I've really got to ask this. So will you please tell me? And they said, well, yes, you were and we're searching for the word here. I'm like, oh no. You were the mistress of one of the British kings.
Oh.
And you bore him many children, which you had a long and happy relationship, which was unusual at that time, and you bore him many children. And I'm like, can you tell me who that was? And they said, yes, we can, but we're not going to, because unless you remember it yourself, it will be of no value to you in your growth and development. So can you give me any hints? And they said, yes, you should look to the German line. And I'm like, what's a nice Jewish girl doing looking to the German line? It's like, oh no. Right. And then they said, well, actually, that's what they said, look to the German line. So a few days later, I'm talking to a friend of mine on the phone, and she says, oh, you should look up the, I can't even remember the name of whatever that line of kings was. And so I go on Wikipedia, and I'm looking up this line of kings, and I see George I, nothing. George II brought two mistresses with him from Germany, one tall, thin woman they nicknamed the Maypole. I'm like, that's not me. And then the second was a very large woman they nicknamed the Elephant. I'm like, that's not me. So I get to George III, nothing. And I'm looking at the Hanoverian line, and I get to William IV, and I burst into tears. I'm on Wikipedia, right? And I'm sobbing, and I read that, I could almost go into tears now telling you about it. I read that William IV had a long and happy relationship with the leading actress of the time period. Right?
Wow.
And they had 10 children together that after her passing in 1866 or whenever it was, they were legitimized as because the King William was the Prince of Wales, Duke of Clarence. These 10 children were legitimized as the Fitz-Clarences.
Wow.
So, it's all historically verifiable. And since that day, which interestingly enough, that was the night. The next day, I'm channel changing, and I come across the marriage of Prince Charles to Camilla Parker Bowles, which was the first time the Prince of Wales has married a mistress.
Wow.
So it all connected, and the draft of that book is in process.
That's crazy.
And
that's crazy amazing. Yes.
It's called Another Stage.
I love that. We're going to be right back. We've got to go on a break. We've got to right back.
Sure.
But that's a great name.
Oh my goodness.
All right, good job. We're all clear. Back
Thanks.
So you can see why, those two experiences were vying for my attention.
Yes, and the second one's so powerful, and it's interesting about Camilla Parker Bowles being the first mistress,
Apparently, according to someone who's done research, she is a descendant of that woman that I was. Oh, yeah.
Oh, interesting.
It is fascinating.
It is. When
So
you think
I've kept
about
a
all of
diary
that.
since that time of the memories that have come up.
Wow. Wow.
And I have been to England, and her portrait is in the National Gallery, and it looks like me. Oh, yeah.
Wow.
And from the National Gallery, I was traveling with my goddaughter, and she goes, "We should go to Drury Lane to see where you were on stage." And literally, I walk out of the National Gallery, and I know the way to Drury Lane. Never been there before.
Wow.
I know.
That's fabulous. I'm looking forward to learning more about my past lives and
Oh,
where I
yes.
was. And I mean, I know it's funny. I had a guest on and he said to me, he goes, "Have you ever been to Peru?" And, he's in Illinois and right now I'm in Wisconsin. And I'm like, "Oh, Peru, Illinois?" And he starts laughing and he goes, "There's a Peru, Illinois." He's like, "No, you've got descendants, you have past lives in Peru." And that's as far as we got in the conversation because we were on, had to get on air. But
well, let me continue it with you now. I see Spain, very definitely, as a woman, dueña, a major woman, and also a Tahitian.
wow.
Yeah. And obviously the Egyptian past lives, but
Yes.
I do read for people and I enjoy that very much.
Wow. Well, and I also know I have a lot of Native American past lives. I was a chief in
Sure.
one of the reservations,
Yes.
and then I was a female. What do they call it? High up.
Medicine woman.
Yes. Yes.
Hmm. Yes.
Oh, sorry to interrupt.
I see
You're coming
that
back.
too.
Thanks.
You are listening to Guided Spirit Conversations. To reach Marla Goldberg or her guest today, you're invited to call into the program at 1-888-346-9141. That's 1-888-346-9141. If you'd rather send an email, the address is guidedspiritconversations@gmail.com. Now, back to this week's program.
Welcome back, and thank you for sticking around. If you've just tuned in, I am having the most delightful conversation with Ness Carroll. And Ness is a Sufi teacher. She's a Renaissance woman. She is the founder of SYNERGENICS, which is the original life coaching program. She is working with our mutual friend, Endre Balogh, on a number of books, but the one that's coming out most recently in the current future is Synergeometry. So it's marrying Endre's sacred geometry pictures with Ness's channeled messages. And I am telling you, it is powerful. I've had the privilege of seeing a couple of these pages, and I know I keep saying it, but I only talk the truth. So know that if it's affecting me this way, it's going to affect others the same way. If you'd like to get in touch with Ness, you can email her directly at Ness@Synergenics, EC. I'm spelling it because I'm not getting it out of my mouth.
Well, just think of it as SYNERGENICS, etc.com.
Thank you. SYNERGENICS, etc.com. You can check out her website of synergeometry.com, synergetics.biz, not to confuse. She has a website, theinternationaluniversity.org. Another website, lifeloveandlaughter.com, which I just love, and spiritsblog.com. So Ness is out and about on a number of platforms for you to learn about her. And before we get into the conversation, it's charity shout out time. And so Ness, her charity is Sunrise Ranch Conference and Retreat Center in Loveland, Colorado. So let's talk about why the retreat, Sunset Ranch Conference and Retreat Center.
Well, it's a community that they have a series of communities around the world. The central community of Sunrise Ranch is a center where they are living as community, as a demonstration of community. And it's used, people use it to bring their groups on retreat and to be taken care of while they're on retreat. I've been part of that community for over 7 years now.
Wow.
And it's based on the teachings from the 1930s, same time as the I Am material through Godfrey Ballard. Uranda gave a teaching at exactly in the 1930s, exactly the same time. And the teachings are very, very similar. Anyway, Sunrise Ranch right now is, they are a mile away from where the Colorado mountain fires are. They've evacuated the ranch, evacuated the animals, and would be glad of any support, I'm sure, that could be offered to them. And you can reach them at sunriseranch.org.
Thank you so much, because, you know, there's so many, I mean, you're in California. How many people have lost everything because of these fires? And now they're moving into Colorado. And Colorado is, I mean, California is a beautiful state, but so is Colorado. Different kind of beauty, but beautiful nonetheless.
Right. Well, it's been over 100 years. No time in recorded memory have they had fires like that. And, you know, I think, you know, one of the most beautiful memories I have of being at Sunrise Ranch was a herd of 200 elk that were in the paddock across the road, and they have wild turkeys, and of course they do their own animal husbandry too. But I mean, there's it's prayers and assistance is what's asked for at this time.
Wow. Yes, definite prayers for the Sunrise
Ranch.
Sunrise Ranch. I apologize.
It's okay.
But for all who are affected by these fires, I mean, the animals that we've lost, the homes, the people's lives have changed. The good news about the humans that have survived, and that is, you know, you can always make new memories. Your old things may have gone away,
right?
But you can make new memories. You're alive to, you know, to start a new canvas, new fresh way of looking at things.
I just feel very close to the community that I'm a part of, whether I live there or not. And then my dear friend David Karcher was kind enough to write the foreword for our book, Scared Geometry. So there's a, you know, a very profound connection there too. But it's, I'm thinking of my friends. They're all evacuated.
And it's hard. It's hard on everybody around. It's hard for Mother Nature. It's hard for the animals. It's hard for the people. And there's a sadness attached to it. That's what I'm feeling because of all the great loss, which includes the beauty. I mean, it's a, you know, Mother Nature, the best artist in the world. I mean, have you ever seen a better artist than Mother Nature?
No, I haven't. I haven't. But you know, we hope that everyone's safe and that the fire, you know, doesn't proceed any further and they can go back to their homes and the animals can come back and that the wild animals and birds are safe.
Exactly. So let's set out some prayers for rain, snow, and end to the fires, even in the most unusual places. And so be it, and so it is.
Amen.
Amen. So I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
What is your tip to living a happy life and a fulfilling life?
It's again another one of those great questions. My tip for living a happy and fulfilling life is humor, is to be joyful, to see a lighter side, to see perhaps something that's funny when everybody's taking things seriously. They may not like it, but if you can stand there, if you can laugh, remember, laughter is a form of the breath.
Yes.
If you can laugh, you're breathing, you're alive, and you're in a position to be inclusive of other people.
I love that. That's so beautiful. And you also do a form of laughter yoga. Am I correct? You know, the breathing laughter.
I do the breath work, and the 3 CDs that we have, the laughter CD, the love CD, and the breath CD, are all just the pure forms. Like the laughter CD is 30 minutes of natural, relaxed laughter recorded live, and Endre Balogh is on that CD laughing. And then the I Love You CD is 30 minutes of natural, relaxed um, music with 4 people speaking the words I love you to each other. And then the breath CD is 30 minutes of rhythmic connected breathing recorded live, just the pure breath.
And so when people are listening to this, do they get sort of, for example, the breath, they start breathing with the CD? It's just
Right, they do.
Breath?
Yeah. Every minute there's an inspiring quotation about the breath, but they actually get to work with what I think is the most useful practice in the spiritual work, which is rhythmic connected breathing. We call it the synergenic breath.
And a lot of people don't breathe deeply to begin with. There are millions of shallow breathers out there.
It doesn't matter if you breathe in a shallow way or a deep way, as long as the inhale and exhale are connected. Every breath is followed by another breath, and your consciousness is associated with your breathing.
I love that. It is, it's just something that I feel everybody should look into. And so where do they find those CDs again, please, Ness?
www.lifeloveandlaughter.com, all spelled out, life, love, and laughter.
So not the Emerstand, it is the and, A-N-D.
It is.
I just find that all 3 of those are so powerful to one's life. Breath is about life, love is about life, and laughter.
Laughter is about life, right?
Exactly. Well, it has been such a pleasure, Ness. I have to wind up the show and
sure.
do my thank you, but we will have to have you back in the future because there's still so much to talk about with you. And especially with the book come out, maybe we can get you and Endre together.
Oh, that would be fun.
That would be beautiful.
Yeah,
it would be so much fun. So we'll work on that. So I want to thank you again. And so to reach out to Ness at SYNERGENICS, etc.com.
SYNERGENICS, etc.com.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
SYNERGEometry.com, synergetics.biz, theinternationaluniversity.org, life, love, and laughter, all spelled out.com, and spiritsblog.com. So you can find Ness in all of those places and find out what she does. And if it resonates with you, reach out, see how you can work together. I want to thank everyone at Voice America for what they do to get my show up and running. Matt, thank you. And I have an announcement. We are syndicated. We will all, starting November 8th, we will be on the Variety Channel Sundays at 9 a.m. Pacific time. So please tune in. I want to thank you, the listeners, for taking time out of your day, out of your life, to be a part of this show. I hope that there's something that was said that resonates with you, that gives you a new tool, a new technique, a new outlook. So thank you. I appreciate it. 2 announcements. It's 12 days till the election day. Please, for those in the United States, please vote. I don't care who you vote for, just vote. That's your voice. That's the 5th chakra. Use it. Let your desires be known through voting. And also, please be socially considerate during this time of COVID uptick. You don't know what somebody else might be dealing with, or if they're working with an elder, a senior that has health issues. So please wear your mask. Please sanitize and wash your hands, and please distance. It is just for everyone's highest and best good. And as I leave you, as always, I send you love. I send you blessings, and I send you gratitude. I look forward to the next week with you. Stay well.
All right, we're all clear.